Welcome to Old Mutuals on the Money Show. Today we're talking all things SMEs. When you look at the South African realities, when it comes to unemployment, the official rate is about 32.9%. But when you look at Black Africans in particular, we are talking 36%. When you look at the youth, it's even worse. We're talking 66%. So the question is employment the answer for South Africa when economies around the world have SMEs that are driving employment? But today we're going to be joined by somebody who understands this world in better than me. So we're joined by a colleague of mine, Ndumiso Zulu, who is a CA, and let's see what he can share with us about the challenges in South Africa and the issues around SMEs. Mfowethu,
John,
are you well?
I'm good. How are you?
It's when those of us who were not that fond of mathematics, when we hear CA, we're thinking, "Yo, this thing is complicated." What does it take to become a CA like yourself?
Sure. A lot of hard work, I think, is a start, but also dedication. It's not one of the easiest courses you'll ever do.
Yeah.
But I think if you really just stay the course, you will make it. And it differs from person to person. Some people do it in the minimum 7 years. Some people do it in 20 years.
Goodness.
And what's interesting,
Yeah.
but what's interesting is that once you actually qualify,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter. It's not a measure of success how soon you get it done.
Right.
As long as you get it done.
Okay. So you are the CEO of social investments at Old Mutual. What is this social investment?
Yeah, good question. So social investments is a new construct within Old Mutual. What we really did was put together three businesses that have one common thread, which is investing in the communities in which we operate with the primary purpose of driving impact, positive social impact in those communities, as opposed to doing things in communities with a profit motive.
Yeah.
So that's what differentiates the businesses that fall under social investments from the greater Old Mutual. So two of these businesses are focused on SME funding and business support solutions. That is the Old Mutual Enterprise Supply Development Fund, ESD Fund for short, and the Masisizane Fund. And then the other third business is the Corporate Social Investments, or CSI for short, that most people would be familiar with.
Okay. Well, still on the credentials, maybe for the benefit of our viewers, give us a bit of your background, your professional background in commercial and development funding.
Sure. So I started my career out at the IDC, Industrial Development Corporation. I did my CA articles there when I qualified. I then took up a role in the technology venture capital unit within the business, after which I then decided I want to see how the other half lives in corporate and investment banking. But also this was in the back end of 2007. People said, there, your bonuses are even bigger than your annual salary. It's like, I am in the wrong business. I was in corporate investment banking for almost 7 years.
Yeah.
I can confirm my bonus never reached those levels, but that's a story for another day.
Yeah.
So I stayed in corporate investment business for just shy of 7 years, during which time I consider myself one of those lucky people who have done funding right from the beginning. So John is starting a small coffee shop and it's funding, all the way up to working on funding packages for some of the biggest corporates in the world you can think of, including countries, because even countries borrow. So I've been very fortunate in my career to be exposed throughout that spectrum. So from then I moved to the DBSA, or the Development Bank of Southern Africa, where I was a project development specialist, so a little bit similar to what I did at the IDC. And then I joined Old Mutual 3 years ago, and that has been a very interesting ride in and of itself.
Okay. So, as you heard from the intro there, today we want to focus on the world of SMEs. How crucial are SMEs in any economy for that matter?
Yeah, probably far more critical than we give them credit for. I say this if you look at the SA context, for example. SMEs make up almost 2/3 of businesses in South Africa. So that should tell you much of the economic activity actually takes place in that sector as opposed to what we are used to as the formal sector. But also, I think it's commonplace that SMEs are really the engine growth for South Africa. If we're ever going to start growing beyond the 2.2% projected growth for this year that we're excited about, that fundamental change will need to happen within the SME space because they have the potential to grow exponentially. And with that growth, unemployment goes the opposite direction. But also people get access to opportunities.
Okay. So, you know, we often hear a lot of people who are trying to start a business saying, look, it's very hard to get funding and this and that. What are some of the misconceptions when it comes to SME funding?
Sure. So one I often encounter is one that says, if I need money today, then I need to start talking about getting money today. It's a process that will never stop. You can do what you can to make the process shorter, but you will never completely make it as short as you want to. And I say this because much of the funding activity in South Africa takes place in the formal financial sector, which is a highly regulated sector. It has to be because my money, your money is circulating in this formal sector, whether it's the money in your bank account, is the money in the fixed deposit. So the regulators need to make sure that that money is safe. So before you can come and borrow money from me, I need to make sure that you are who you say you are. I need to make sure that you are not listed for debt elsewhere, because if you can't pay them, why are you going to pay me? So my advice to business owners is always, if you need money 6 months from now, start now, not in 6 months. I often encounter business owners who say, I've secured this great opportunity. This particular department has given me a purchase order for 5 million. I need 3 million rand for stock, but I need it tomorrow. And I say to them, I wouldn't even trust my own brother with 2 million rand within one day. I have a whole bunch of questions I need to answer. I need you to answer before I can get to a level of comfort that I will give you the money. So time and preparedness is important. But also that preparedness also entails getting your financial affairs in order. As a business, but also as a business owner, because we don't know each other. I often say the business of lending is for crazy people, because if I walk up to you and you don't know me from a bar of soap and say, Bright John, please borrow me 5 million, I'll pay you back in 5 years, you'll probably laugh me out of the room. How do I know you're going to pay me? But in the business of lending, people actually say, tell me more. And you give them a piece of paper you call a business plan, and they cut you a 5 million rand check. Somehow, this system works. So something has to underpin it. And that's really trust or faith, right, in the financial system. That the systems that underpin it work, that people borrow, people pay. And there's work that needs to happen there. And the minute I find out that your financial affairs are not in order, I get nervous. And funding is in its very nature a risky business. Because if I give you money and you don't pay me, then what? So I need to make sure before I give you that money that I'm comfortable that the chances that you're going to pay me back are better than slim. And I find that's one of the pitfalls or the stumbling blocks most entrepreneurs struggle with. In fact, I have a story about this particular entrepreneur who had a great business. We were ready to give him funding. And then as we do our due diligence check, we realize that he is listed for debt in his personal capacity. And for the life of him, he didn't understand why that is an issue, because he's saying, you are lending to my business. My business is not listed. I am. Why are you trying to mix this oil and water into one pot? And I'm saying to him, well, you run this business, right? So your judgment at the end of the day is what I, as an investor, am putting my reliance on. So if your judgment in your personal capacity is questionable,
Yeah.
Why shouldn't I question it on the business side of things, considering the risk is considerably higher here?
Yeah.
Because maybe you are listed here because you did not pay your retail account of $500. Now you say I must lend you 15 million.
Oh. Yeah,
So that's the difficulty.
The numbers don't gel. So that leads me to my next question. What are some of the red flags that funders would look at when assessing a funding application from an entrepreneur?
Sure. Good question. So what the starting point is always the business plan.
Yeah.
And maybe we need to demystify that. Say business plans, business, big, big word. I need to maybe get a consultant. Really, in its bare form, a business plan is an outline of who you are as a business. What are you going to do? How much money do you need to do it? And then you do projections in terms of do the numbers actually make sense, that you're going to be able to repay me, but also make profit for yourself. In other words, is the business sustainable as you see it today? Because nobody works for free. Nobody wants to start a business that's going to make a loss. So that's essentially what a business plan is. The better the business plan, the better your chances of actually securing funding.
Yeah.
And I find that with some business owners, a business plan, putting it together is almost a grudge exercise.
Yep.
Like I'm doing it because they want it, as opposed to I'm doing it because it's essential for my business. Similar to that, it's making sure that you keep adequate financial records, because that says to me you understand what's going on in your business day to day.
Yeah.
So if you say to me, I'm running a business selling, I don't know, tables like this one, and then I say to you, okay, so how much does it cost to make this table? The minute you say to me, I'm going to have to ask my accountant and check, that means you're probably not reviewing your financial information as often as you should. So because I don't know you, I keep coming back to this point. You're coming to me looking for money. I don't know you. So every interaction you and I have, it says something to me about you as an entrepreneur and whether I can trust you or not. So if you're not keeping adequate accounting records, it's a problem. If your business plan looks like it was put together in a hurry, that's a red flag. I once had a gentleman very early on in my career sent me a business plan handwritten. And then basically his proposal was he wants to buy or supply machines for people to wash their hands, like if usemcimbini or something, a mobile hand washer in essence. Writes it out by hand and then continues to draw this machine for me by hand, and then puts his account number at the bottom, say, please deposit 5 million rand in this account.
Yeah.
That's a non-starter.
Sure.
If you're talking about red flags. So the way you prepare your business plan says something about you as an entrepreneur, as much as it says something about the very business you're trying to present. We've spoken about the fact that how you maintain your own financial affairs has a big impact on your ability to secure funding as well.
Yeah. So you've answered the question I was about to ask, but I'll ask the second part of the question I wanted to ask you about personal financial habits as an entrepreneur who's looking for funding. So, to what extent do funders look at your personal or credit profile and link it to the business, which is a separate legal entity that's granted, but obviously appreciating the fact that you're the business owner? To what level of detail would funders look at your personal financial habits and your credit profile?
Sure. Critically. We look at that critically, but I mean, even if you zoom out of just an entrepreneur trying to secure funding, even you as an individual trying to secure a job, potential employers actually look at your financial conduct in part of making the decision whether to hire you or not. You'll be amazed at how many people I've interviewed got excited about. Right at the end, when you do credit checks, it's red flags all over the place. Now, we work in financial services. If you can't manage your money, how are you going to manage mine? The same principle applies, perhaps even more so, in running your own business. Because maybe if you're applying for a job, we say, he's not really good at managing his personal finances, but in my business, he's not going to touch money, so it's fine.
Yeah.
Doesn't work like that in the business, right? So it's very important that you maintain that. But also, it's an indicator of how you are going to manage these business finances once you have them. Because oftentimes you will find somebody who's been funding his businesses maybe out of their own pocket, maybe out of their pension. Now they are poised for growth. Now, all of a sudden, a business that ran on maybe a 500,000 rand budget now suddenly gets 10 million. Now, Brajon thinks he's a millionaire. You are not a millionaire. Your business is, right? So we tend to mix up the two and almost always get into trouble because of it. Because once you start money that's earmarked for the business and use it for the personal, and we always think we're going to catch up at some point and we never do, not only have you ruined the relationship with this particular lender, because remember, there are now also credit bureaus where if you don't pay, you get listed. So you don't pay me, and then everyone else doesn't want to touch you because your record is now in trouble. So it is critically important.
Okay.
You know.
So tell me about the different types of funding available for SMEs.
Yeah. So that is a very critical question, because it's not only just the different types of funding that are available, which I'm going to go into right now. It's also important to look at your business and the stage it is in, and then assess what is the applicable type of funding that you need. Because you hear people time and time again talking about, I always look for funding, I always get rejected. And I ask, are you knocking at the right door for what you need? That's very important. I'll come back to that point. So the different types of funding available to businesses are driven by and large by what you're trying to do with the money. So for example, there's long-term funding, which is funding you're going to keep for 5-10 years or whatever the case is. There's short-term funding that you need, for example, to pay salaries and things like that. So you have things like working capital facilities. So you need money so you can acquire stock, so that you can sell that stock and you pay your employees, so they tend to be recurring in nature. That's one part. You have things like asset finance. If you are in the trucking business, for example, a good truck will set you back a few million rands. I don't know if you have that money. I don't. So typically you'll go to a funder and say, I've secured a contract. I need this type of truck to be able to deliver. Then a funder or a bank is going to say, Bright John, I like your business case. Here is 2-3 million rand or however much the truck costs. I'll buy it on your behalf. So in other words, the lender owns the truck, but you keep and use the truck as if it's your own, and only when you finish paying it off does it become your property. So installment sale agreement. So you see a lot of those structures in the asset finance space. And then you get secured funding. So you're looking at things where you essentially say, let's say you're buying a house, right? When you buy a house, that's a type of secured funding, because you get the house, but then the bank says, if anything ever happens and you don't pay me, I take the house, sell it, so I can recover my money. The basic principle is the more secure the funding is, the cheaper the interest rate you get charged, because the risk is lower. On the other side of the scale, you get unsecured funding. So things like your personal credit card, for example, are unsecured, and because of it, they tend to be more expensive. So to my original point, you need to be clear on what you want to do with the money, so that you know the type of funding that is applicable to it. So don't buy a car with your credit card. You're going to be in trouble. So those are the type of funding that are available. But also then, when you are a business, depending at what stage you are at. So for example, if you want to start a franchise where your store is branded as one of the big retailers in this country, in the township, because you see that people have to travel for an hour to go to the nearest town, you can then go and knock on a venture capitalist door for funding. Because there's a reason venture capital tend to play in the technology space. Opportunities of exponential growth are there. The risk is very high, but also if you make it, you really make it. Whereas in retail, the margins or the profits are not that big, but the business is a lot safer. If you sell food, at some point somebody's going to buy. So if you're knocking on the venture capital's door, they're going to say no. Not because your business is not good enough or it doesn't have a business case, because you're knocking on the wrong door. Similarly, most people who want to start a business always talk about how banks reject them. Go to the bank, they are too risk averse, they don't want to fund me. And I'm saying, when you are still conceptualizing a business, banks are not the right people you want to go to. They talk about angel investors and friends, family. A colleague of mine says it's friends, families, and fools that give you that startup funding. And that's because that person, by and large, is investing in you as a person, as an entrepreneur, than they are in the business, because the business is not fully formed yet. A bank is never going to take that kind of risk on you. It's just not structured that way, and there's a reason behind it. Banks don't have money. You and I, as the bank's customer, have money. Imagine one day you go to a bank, you try and withdraw, nothing comes. It says, sorry, Bra John, I thought Siyabonga over there had a good business idea. I funded him, and it didn't pay us. So there's always that delicate balance behind between providing the funding required, but also making sure that as a lender yourself, you don't then put your business at risk. So understand where you are as a business, understand the funding sources available to you, and which one is applicable to you given where you are, because it'll change over time. So you can start off being somebody that has a great idea and you need grant funding. You prove the concept, the business starts selling, then development funding institutions start getting interested because they see the concept. Now that you are developed in a fully fledged business, now all of a sudden the banks are interested because you are now a more acceptable risk based on their appetite, because your business is established, your cash flows are more predictable, and the like. I find there's always that mismatch between what the entrepreneur needs and where they go looking for it from a funding perspective.
So what should an entrepreneur consider in deciding whether they should go the loan route or a shareholder investor, to fund their business?
Great question. As a start, and it's a fundamental question you're asking, there is only two main sources of funding for any business. You either go to somebody, you borrow money, which means you have to pay them back at some point, or you raise your own money, or get a partner to put their own money into your business alongside you. Both have trade-offs, both have advantages. If you invest in equity, or rather if you raise money through equity, it's either you have to find that money yourself, or you need to get somebody else to be a co-shareholder. But by virtue of doing that, you're losing some of the control of your business now, because it's no longer your business, it's my business. It means even the decision making has to happen here and not at your house. So you gotta make that decision that says, am I willing to give control in order to get funding or not? If you don't want to give control of your business, then you want to go the debt route. But remember, if you raise debt, the person who you owe money to doesn't care how your business is doing. If I'm supposed to get paid at the end of the month, you pay me at the end of the month. And if you don't pay me, there's a whole litany of consequences that follow that. So it's important to bear that in mind. But also, by its very nature, equity investors are long-term investors. So if you don't have patient capital, then don't invest in equity. I always make this example that for the first 12 to 14 years, Microsoft didn't pay any dividends to its shareholders. So that means you would have invested money when your child was born, and they go all the way to high school, and you still haven't seen a single cent coming from this investment. If you don't have that kind of patience, equity is not for you. Whereas on the other end of the spectrum, if you give somebody debt today, they start paying you at the end of the month. But because you get the money a lot quicker, the return on debt tends to be a lot lower than the return on equity because the risk on equity is higher.
Yeah.
The other challenge is if the business fails, and businesses fail a lot, you as the equity owner, or the equity holder or owner of this business, you get paid right at the end, right? So your employees are going to get paid, your secured creditors are going to get paid, SARS gets paid, and when all of that is done, there's usually nothing left for you.
Yeah.
So you need to decide upfront before you invest whether that level of risk is acceptable for you.
Yeah.
But also time is a factor. It's a lot easier to raise debt finance than it is to raise equity.
Yeah.
So if you need money in 3 months, you're probably not going to get there when you try and raise equity. You will easily get there if you're raising debt.
Yeah.
So these are some of the considerations as a business owner you need to bear in mind. But the one about control is very important. People go and secure equity partners, and then you hear they are now fighting, they're taking each other to court, because it's not just about the ability of your partner to bring the money. It's whether you have a shared vision for this business.
Yeah.
So again, if I'm investing in your business because I'm thinking in 3 years my daughter is going to university, I need money to be able to pay for her fees. We get to 3 years' time, the business is not at a point where it can pay dividends. We're going to have a problem, because now you're going to say, either you pay me or I'm going to sell this to someone else. But now you are worried because you don't know who that someone else is, and whether you're going to jail as business partners. Yeah.
Okay. So can you unpack the concept of surety? Now that we're talking about different sources of funding, how does surety work for somebody who's raising funding through maybe getting a loan?
Yeah, that's a great question, Brajon. I also find that especially for small business owners or emerging businesses, the process of securing funding is so daunting, and you get rejected so many times that eventually, when you find somebody who says, yes, I will give you the money, you'll sign just about anything they put in front of you. So you are asking me what surety is, which is good because you're asking now. I get people asking me, Kana, how does this surety thing work when they've already signed?
Yeah.
Right? In its bare form, surety basically says, if person A incurs a debt and fails to pay it, then I, person B, will repay that debt. So, for example, if you go to the bank and try to get a loan and they say, Brajon, we're not sure if you can pay it. You then say, oh, but my friend Ndumiso over there is a lot of money. Can you stand surety for me? If I agree to stand surety, I'm saying if Brajon doesn't pay, I will. And it becomes a problem when that surety becomes due, because now I may not necessarily appreciate where Brajon is or how he's running his business, but because I've agreed to sign on as surety, I'm in the hook now for whatever he doesn't pay. So it's an instrument that helps, particularly in instances where people are trying to raise finance, but they don't have any security to back it up. So whether it's a car, whether it's your investments, then they say, get somebody with a better financial position than you to stand surety for you. But really what you're doing when you're signing on as a surety, you're saying if the other person doesn't pay, I will.
Yeah. So can I use my property as surety?
So strictly speaking, if you use property to secure a loan, that's a mortgage. But indirectly, you can say, these are the assets I have. Maybe I have a house worth $1 million. I have, I don't know, investments worth 2 million rand. So I am good to stand surety for something up to 3 million rand.
Yeah.
So yes, the house forms part of the assets, but it's not the main security instrument, if that makes sense. But then that house can't be bonded elsewhere.
Yeah.
Because then if I try and take that house, when the security or when the surety becomes due, the bank is going to come back and say, Chief, I have first mortgage on that house, so you can't take it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, okay, some of the small to medium businesses struggle with record keeping. And when they apply for funding, how crucial is record keeping for an entrepreneur?
Record keeping is arguably the single most important thing that lenders look at. We spoke about the business plan, but you write the business plan. So you can say whatever you want to say in your business plan. You can promise me the world. You can't do that with credible financial records. If you have 50 cents in the bank, your bank statement is going to say you have 50 cents, right? Similarly, financial statements are one of the things that entrepreneurs struggle with the most to produce. It's even worse after you've given them money. And the reason that is important, it gives me comfort as a lender. It gives me a line of sight into how your business is doing so that we can identify problems up front. I think probably the why financial records are important is what's lost on some business owners. It's important for you because how else do you manage your business if you don't know how your business is doing? Right? So that's the one part. But also myself as a lender, you send me financial records. I say, Brajon, if you only have a cash balance of maybe 500,000, but on average you use 3 million to pay your staff, to pay your suppliers, how are you bridging this funding gap? We might actually have to have a conversation around raising additional funds for you so that you don't run short of money halfway through the cycle. I don't have that line of sight if you don't keep adequate financial records, right? So that's why that is important. But also the fact that you keep financial records says to me, this is the person who is proactively managing their business. This is the person who's planning ahead. Because if you don't have records, then how do you know how your business is doing? And it's part of the reasons why people look at the cash balance and say, oh, I have money, I can afford to go buy a car now. And then 2 weeks later, you can't pay your employees.
Yeah. So you head up Masisizane Fund. How does Masisizane structure the funding? How different is it from commercial banks?
Sure. So as a start, you'd have to look at Masisizane's own mandate and why it exists. And it was really aimed at addressing a gap in the market that says if you are young, if you are black, if you are female, if you live in the township, if you're from a rural area, all other things being equal, you will struggle the most to secure funding, particularly from entities like banks. And the reasons for that are known. It's the usual suspects. You might not have enough security. You might not have your own contribution because you can never run a business with 100% other people's money because there's no skin in the game for you. As soon as this thing goes belly up, you say, I'm going to go ask Brajon for a job now because this thing is not working. And who loses? The lender. You lose nothing. But then now, knowing the way South Africa is structurally, that's a lived reality. Not a lot of people have excess funds that they can use to invest in a business. So Masisizane went into business explicitly saying these are the people we want to support. And some of them are probably not going to be able to provide a lot of own financial contribution. So maybe you contribute what we say is sweat capital, so your own efforts into the business. We can actually consider that being your contribution to the business. You will dedicate your resources to running this business effectively. You'll obviously draw a salary because you must survive, but oftentimes, usually at the beginning, it's not the kind of salary you would have made at Old Mutual, right? So that sacrifice is your contribution. But the idea is as the business grows, it also then can afford to pay you closer to what you actually deserve. That's the one element. But the other part of it is recognizing that funding is just one aspect of what a business needs. Another, it's the support structure, it's the infrastructure, it's the know-how to run a business. If you picture how a company like Old Mutual is structured, you have a chief of everything, chief of marketing, chief of finance, In a small business, usually the owner is all of those things.
Yeah.
You are the CEO, but you're also the guy who makes coffee. And sometimes you are even the guy who sweeps the floors. So capacity is a challenge. How do we then, as Masisizane, support you with resources to help you run your business better? Whether that talks about the provision of funds that you can afford, whether that talks about saying, Brajon is very good at making whatever the product is, but maybe he's not very good at selling it. Can we pair him with a mentor who's very experienced in the sector that can guide him through this process, and as part of it, ensure that their skills transfer over time? Mentors don't do it for free. Your business probably can't afford to pay a mentor at the moment. Business support funding can help bridge that gap. But also, over and above that, it's partnership, right? So we don't give you money today and say, Brajon, see you at the end of the month when you pay us. Post-investment stays in touch with you all the way and say, how are you doing? Is your business hitting the targets? Do you have enough cash in the balance, in the bank, and things like that? And we find that when business owners reciprocate that sort of partnership mentality, the businesses are far more likely to succeed than people who tend to go, you've given me your money, now leave me alone, I'll pay you back at the end of the month.
Yeah.
It works if it works, but if it doesn't, and oftentimes it doesn't, that's when we run into trouble, because at the end of the day, the name is Masisizane, which says we are here to help, but that is not the same as we're giving you this money for free to do whatever you want to do with it. But I'd say those are the fundamental differentiators between how we approach funding, as opposed to, say, a commercial bank or an entity that is doing it for profit purposes.
Yeah. You spoke about cash in the bank. Why do a lot of SMEs struggle with cash flow management?
I think it's a planning challenge. Cash, by its very nature, is liquid, which means it can move very quickly. You can see that even in your own life. 1 minute you think you have money, next thing you've spent it, it's gone. So if you don't plan that I have this 1 million rand in the bank right now, how am I going to use it? Because remember, there are debit orders that you probably don't even know about. So when you say I have 1 million, really you have maybe 800,000, because tomorrow 2 debit orders are going to hit. So if you don't plan, you're going to go spend this 1 million today. And then tomorrow, when the debit order comes, you are in trouble. We experienced that a lot in some of the businesses we funded in the retail service stations industry or petrol stations. So chances are, where you fill up on your way home, we funded that business. So what happens is the oil company will supply you the diesel, it'll supply you the petrol that you sell. The big truck comes, they empty the load onto your tanks. Tomorrow, the debit order goes off your bank account. If you don't have enough funds in that account, you are in trouble, because you're not getting the next load. But because you didn't get the next load, I, as your customer, I'm going to come here and say, that Brajon never has fuel, so from now on, I'm never going to fill up. That's one problem. The second problem is that oil company that supplies you with the oil, you carry their brand, right? So they don't say Brajon's business never has fuel. They say this particular oil company does, so they have to protect their brand. And one way of doing that is saying, if you ever run dry, we're going to pull the right we've given you to sell under our name. So that's what happens when you don't manage your cash flow effectively. It's important to know, what do I need to pay when? And do I have enough funds to be able to do that? But also, do I maintain a particular buffer over and above that, so that if there are things that come that I didn't expect, I don't run into trouble? And that happens all the time. Sometimes problems can be precipitated by your suppliers inadvertently debiting you on the wrong day. So you thought your debit order is going on the 1st of the month, and by then you will have enough money. and then somehow you get debited on a Friday because the next 3 days are a holiday. The debit order comes on that day, the money is already gone, you are in trouble. So that's why financial planning is critical in managing your cash flows.
So a trust is a different legal arrangement. Would you consider an application for funding from a trust?
Not typically. I'll tell you why. Because trusts, unlike companies, are highly restrictive and regulated businesses, right? So, for example, a business, when it needs to borrow money, it just goes to the bank and borrows money. A trust needs to be authorized by its trustee to be able to borrow money. It's not a natural sort of ability to do it. I think at their core, trusts were conceptualized to house assets as opposed to necessarily operating businesses. What we typically see, though, is that the businesses, the companies or the PTYs, are then owned by trusts. So instead of John being a shareholder in company X, John's family trust will own the operating company, which means in effect, the person who owns the company is not John, even though I'm dealing with you as a lender, because obviously a trust is not a person.
Okay. So I guess maybe the last question I would want to put to you is for somebody who's listening or watching this podcast and want to start a business, what are the key 3 things maybe that they should have in place before they even engage any potential funder?
Sure. I think one of the biggest mistakes business owners or people who want to start a business make is thinking every good idea equates to a business. It doesn't work that way. And I'm saying this because I had this incident earlier on in my career. This guy came with a business plan and he said, you've seen people driving around. This was in the lead up to the World Cup, and everybody had a flag of their favorite country covering rear view mirrors. And he said, that's what I want to do. Did you see the buzz it generated for the World Cup? I want to sell that. And I said to him, it was a great idea because there was a World Cup coming. The World Cup has come and gone. Philip is gone. So now, who are you going to sell this to? Because the World Cup came and went, and the buzz and the demand for that particular product went with it. So it's important to establish whether there is a market for your product or your idea. 1. 2, even if you've established that there is a market for your product, how are you going to capture that market? Because there's somebody already servicing it. So if you want to start a book publishing business, there's already somebody who published this book. They are not opening their gates wide open that John come sell alongside us. It's competition. So how are you going to convince the customer to not go to the existing businesses and come to you? So your marketing strategy needs to be very clear. So those to me are some of the things I find that trip up business owners down the road. But also, your business is not your baby. So don't personalize it. When somebody tells you that I don't actually see a business here, it's not personal. It's an objective assessment. So go back to the drawing board. Maybe there isn't a business, or maybe you haven't presented your business case very well. So if you want to own or start a business, be very open to doing things differently, to going back to the drawing board, because you're going to be operating in a very dynamic and fast changing environment. So if you are married to your ideas, you're going to struggle.
So for someone who wants to apply for funding because they want to buy into a franchise, what sort of risks should they consider, or what sort of risks would a funder look at for somebody to say, look, I want to buy into this particular franchise?
Yeah, fantastic question. First off, you want to understand for yourself as a potential business owner, and I would also want to understand the same thing as the potential funder into this business of yours, what kind of support, if any, does the franchisor provide to its franchisees? Or is it one of those things where we say, here's a licensing agreement, you pay us a percentage of your revenues, good luck, see you at the end of the month? Or they actually walk the journey with you and say, if you run into trouble, this is how we support you. Here is an accounting system, for example, so you are able to track your orders, track your sales, and produce financial records. But also, is there a meeting of the minds in terms of the objectives, what you're trying to do, and what the franchisor wants to achieve? So is your vision aligned? But also, what I said about control when we're talking about shareholders versus debt finance, the same principle applies on franchising versus running your own business. You can run your business however you want. But if you want to run a business carrying somebody else's brand, they're going to tell you how to run that business right down to what uniform you must wear on site. If you are not willing to give up that kind of control, franchising is not going to work for you. If you're running a franchise and I'm selling the same product as your franchisor, you can't say Ndumiso's product is cheaper, so I'm going to buy there. You are bound to buy from the franchisor. If you don't do that, you are in breach of contract, and there's a whole host of consequences that come from that. So that's very important. But also, another thing you want to understand is, or assess, is the experience of that franchisor in the market. Because if they are starting out, it means they probably don't understand the market very well yet. And now you are tethering your business to this. If they got it wrong, so do you. Yeah.
Yeah. So if an entrepreneur wants to look at a list of potential funders, is there a portal? Where would they find this information?
I suppose one of the downsides of living in the information age, there is such a thing as there being too much information. You don't even know where to start looking. That's probably where we find ourselves as a generation. But I think by and large, I mean, for example, if you look at Old Mutual, we have a platform called, can I say the name? SMEGO, for example. It has a list of different funders that you can then be linked to. Masisizane, by the way, is one of the funders on that platform. And it depends on the type of funding you're looking for in terms of where your business is. And that's really aimed at making it a lot easier for potential business owners to access funding. But I suppose there's Google now. If you're looking for development funding, you type that on Google, we're going to give you a whole list of them in South Africa and abroad. So I think more than anything, it's not so much about where do I find them. It's about, are they looking to fund the kind of business that I am running, or for the stage that I am currently at. But I will emphasize as a final point, planning ahead of time. The worst thing you can ever do as a business is go secure an opportunity and look for funding after the fact. And I've seen a lot of that, because now you said to me, Ndumiso, supply me 1 million of these books because I want to supply them to schools all over SA, but I need this book in 3 weeks before the schools close. And only then do I start running around trying to raise funding. I'm not going to get there, which means as a business, I've lost on the opportunity, but it also means as a business, I've lost the credibility to you as a client that actually I can't rely on this guy. I gave him an opportunity, he didn't supply. And the reason he didn't supply is because he didn't have access to funding. And he didn't have access to funding because he didn't plan for it ahead of time. So plan as if you've already arrived. So seek funding as if you've already secured the opportunity. Otherwise, if you try and do it the other way around, you're going to lose the opportunity because you didn't get the funding right.
Wow. Wow, that was a mouthful. Thank you very much for your time. I'm sure that our viewers and followers would certainly enjoy this particular podcast. I mean, I think we've covered as much as people can imagine as far as it relates to SME and SME funding. But thank you very much.
Thank you for having me, Bra John. It's fantastic.
Awesome.